Tyrande and Sylvanas having a rap battle is cool. Garrosh, Hellscream, and Vegeta having a conversation is also cool.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a lot more stuff that I haven't thought about yet.
Suffice to say, there's a very big discussion to be having in the art realm. Absolutely. When it comes to the realm of Chat GPT, the Da Vinci model that you can use with OpenAI's API.
Oh, we're being replaced.
Etc. Look, I will readily admit I use AI all the time. Why the f could I draft an email when I could? And you know that episode of The Office where Kevin's like, "Why use more word when less word do job?"
Yeah.
Basically, I get to do that, and then what comes to the other end is, "Hey, person's name, I hope this email finds you well. I'm just contacting you to follow up so that we can touch base on the blah, 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 whatever." It's been fucking awesome. I can just plow through my emails. I hate email. But now I'm like, all right, here's all the stuff that I want to communicate from me to this person. Do it all in a list. Bam! Like, work is done. For some, there's actually quite a lot of other things. There's been times even in some video scripts where I will have written a paragraph and I'll be sitting there, I'll be editing the paragraph, and I'll be thinking like, I don't like how this paragraph flows. I don't understand why I do not like this. And what happens there is you either, go read a book or, about English, or creative writing or something, or you use a website like Grammarly. But the thing is that, like, man, if you can tell when something is Grammarly to fuck.
Yeah.
And Grammarly won't always know.
It's soullessly correct.
So, like, the one of the things I noticed is I keep on having these bloated sentences where it feels like I repeat myself, and I'm using passive voice all the time. And of course, I'm always doing that with the goal of actually being a better writer. So if there's a sentence that I just can't quite get right, I'll put the sentence in and I'll say, I will just tell the AI, I'm really struggling with this sentence. Could you try rewriting it in passive voice and give me, 3 different variants? And I'll hit the button and it'll generate those. And it's like, okay, these are different variants of my sentence. And taking a bit of a leaf or inspiration from that, I'll be like, okay, now I know how to tweak up the thing that I'm doing. So for me, it's just been a really useful writing aid. And that is because, so it is incredibly good at mass data processing and some forms of what I am going to call forced lateral thinking. The sort of lateral thinking where the human, I may be like, I want it to be more like this, but I don't exactly know how. And there's options that exist that I cannot see. Obviously, it has none of those biases or issues.
Yeah.
Now, all things have to be used with care, of course. There's, as with all, increases in technology, we need to not fire the ethicists. Yeah. We're seeing that in AI art. Indeed, this is a discussion that's been happening for 20 years.
It's like a gun, you can still shoot yourself in the
advertising. Foot, like. Actually, I saw... I can't believe I'm saying this, but fair play to Vox Media for doing it was like a debate thingy. But it was a debate where they basically pre-did a bunch of questions and then all got them fact checked. It was about legalization versus decriminalization of a certain green thing, certain green thing that maybe makes people feel nice, but also is involved with disproportionate policing of certain communities.
And also has profound side effects in the long term that are currently being researched to be balanced and fair.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
There are people who are very close to the idea that there can be both pros and cons.
The Green Devil.
But like I thought it was and this does actually come back to the ethics point. And like it was obviously 2 people who are strongly entrenched in one position or the other. But it was a really good, well-produced video that like concisely explained people's arguments in a way where everyone was fact-checked and everything that was being said was essentially true. And, the guy that was saying that, not just decriminalization, but commercialization in a way that will generate tax revenue, he was essentially saying like, all the usual reasons people are pro that. And then the other guy is like, well, hang on a second. Do you want to have commercialized addiction?
Yep.
And then I think about, you know,
we don't have that already at all.
you think about Frosty Jacks. If you don't know about Frosty Jacks, I don't.
Yes, or Dragon Soup or Four Loko.
Yeah, so Frosty Jacks, you know, you see Frosty Jacks, people in the street who are drunk as fuck and are clearly alcoholics.
No one has a good time with that. Like.
Yeah, no one has a good time in Frosty Jacks. It's like, if you are the CEO of Frosty Jacks, then you are making society suffer to earn money. So then I was like, oh yeah. It would, and the guy who was pro decriminalization, because I mean, very obviously, it's awful, the disproportionate policing and the terrible impact that something so innocuous has in people's lives, especially in the United States. But the idea of decriminalization, the decriminalization guy was saying, like, look, I'm not saying you can't have it, or, you know, oh yeah, it's not illegal, but how do you get some? He was saying, like, you should be able to grow this shit in your house. It's fine. But not commercialization, because you do not want to create the big, you know, like, economic machine that is going to have a vested interest in marketing and fostering addiction. This is a thing, like, Americans, you guys got to watch out, because you guys are getting way closer to sports betting being way more legal.
It's brutal here.
You need to know from the experience of the United Kingdom, sports betting is a humongous plague on society. And, you know, much like how liquor stores, oh, hey, we generate government revenue. The liquor stores are disproportionately ruining the lives of, you know, of people who are not, you know, particularly well off, right? Mm. So I just thought that was really interesting from a, like, yeah, we can kind of like ho-hum capitalism our way through absolutely everything and, you know, not think about the external negatives in the same way that somebody would be like, yeah, look, I don't actually give a shit that, you know, we are basically just completely fucking a bunch of artists because we've made the Nightmare Demon Box.
Torment Nexus.
I just want to do my thing. You know, I am an artist. I did prompts. Somebody did some fan art of the protagonists from Hades 1 and 2.
Oh, fuck.
And you know that reply that was like, this is amazing. What prompts did you use for this?
What were your keywords? Practice drawing for 10 years.
And you see that and you're like, fuck. This is the Torment Nexus.
Yeah.
And we have this interesting thing because it's a very, you know, as with so many things, they've very rapidly become this side versus that side and a very, very impassioned thing. There's people, as some people I know, where it's like, if you bring up the keyword of AI, I mean, you know that meme video that always used to go around back in the day? It was like, I wake up, I get triggered. I look outside, I get triggered. I pour a glass of water, I get triggered.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I mean, it's one of those weird piss take videos that's people like to overplay that reality to make their point, even though for most people it's like, that's just a funny video of someone. You know, a bit like that because it's so polarized. Whereas I know that, like, when you actually are in the DMs and stuff and you're talking to people who are reasonable, who are ethical, who are not going to be misusing this stuff, and who are going to be thinking, hang on a second, can we have this be a little bit like cruise control, where it will reduce fatigue and reduce, you know, procedural grunt work? Because at the end of the day, right, getting GPT-3 to generate some usable code for you,
yeah,
the usable code's just a means to an end. And I can tell you from, let's see, if I had have delayed doing this business, I would have been a master's of engineering. Mm-hmm. And based on my grades, it probably would have been like a first. So, like, I was doing C++ and shit. Everyone just looks at Stack Overflow, bro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where does that end?
Look at Rapid7 or PwC or any of these fucking IT houses. It's not. It's normal. It's like the calculator. Do you know what? Actually, with most things, you just got the best fucking take on all this shit.
Yep.
Luke from Linus Tech Tips.
Of course, he's smart.
Eternally reasonable and smart bastard.
Yeah.
So I think there's, if you look at the LMG Clips channel, if you just want to like have those segments extracted so that you can just sort of see what Luke thinks, or you know, Luke and Linus talking. You know, I just think he encapsulates it really well. Back when me and Matt were at school, we weren't allowed to bring our calculator into into maths.
Good times.
And that's just really fucking stupid, because what are computers, what are humans for, what are computers for? Ultimately, we're trying to achieve a goal. The idea, you know, how Steve Jobs, one of the, I think the greatest pieces of marketing in most of history, is describing the Macintosh as the bicycle for the mind. Right? Like, fuck, that's a perfect way to get somebody who does not, I mean, remember the time period we're talking about, that's the perfect way to get somebody who does not know what a fucking computer does to understand. And, you know, in a way, this is like the bicycle for the mind happening all over again. But the difference is it is operating at a level of sophistication and power that is going to, in all likelihood, outstrip society's ability to essentially have a consensus on what's good or not. In the same way, I've got to tell you, I'm not anti-blockchain. I'm not anti-AI art stuff sort of in principle from a technological perspective. But fucking crypto grifter bros come in and fucking ruin everything, don't they?
Yeah.
Like the idea, you know, whenever I'm using Photoshop, there's a fucking neural net trained model that I use to basically rotoscope myself. And it's incredible. You know the new cloud one?
The cloud content thing is so good, man.
Yeah. The idea that somebody could use the fill tool, the content-aware fill tool, but have that be next level good.
Yeah.
The idea that, and I'm talking about, you know, as time goes on, because we're still early days for this technology, the idea that, you know, if you're an artist, you may be able to plug your own work into Photoshop. Photoshop your local copy of Photoshop will have an understanding of your work, and then that could maybe have some, you know, neural net enabled tools that you could use that will allow you to be more effective as an artist. Because look, this shit's been happening. Photo bashing didn't exist back in the day. And also, this is something Mike Bithell pointed out, a lot of... It's kind of weird because there's different types of art, but art as it pertains to actual game production... actually, Matt, let me try to get something up here. Is this it? Sorry, I'm just straight up trying to bring a page up.
Do you need an AI to help you search for something online?
Well, like... Oh, man. Okay, so could you flick over to my monitor here? A lot of people, you know, they think of... I actually don't have my Dragonflight art book here. They think of concept art, and they think of all these beautiful pieces that a big company releases in an art book. Per Mike Bithell's, I think, insightful and very correct assertion of the situation. Mike Bithell, of course, Thomas Was Alone, Bithell Games. This is what concept art is. This is trying to block out some lighting and work out literally how do we make the thing. And to a lot of people, it'll be like, oh, that looks a bit shit. That doesn't look like an amazing painting. Amazing paintings are not concept art. People have a really, like, you see this is just like, you know, some old art of like Ethan trying to work out, you know, what's the ship? But like this is of extremely limited use for actually making the game. Yeah. Very nice to look at. But actually, you know, very like hyper usable concept art of a ship is going to look, you know, very, very, very different. Oh my God, that's the first version of Kurt.
Certainly looks a bit different.
Yeah, well, there's almost like a little bit more, you know, add like, tell the AI to add 5% Darkest Dungeon in.
Yeah.
But anyway, you know, stuff like this isn't, you know, some mega crazy sexy concept art, but what it is trying to work out how does a person move, how do they do all that shit. So basically the thing is, oh yes, there's our TikTok page. The thing there is like being able to generate a bunch of generic sci-fi hot women because you can do a prompt. Like, if you want your game to be utter generic tripe, all right, sure. But I think where this technology could really be useful is, you know, not in the crypto bros be grifting, just thinking, hang on a second, could I hit a button and generate an entire NFT collection? Oh my God, I really do deserve the entrepreneur that I put inside my Twitter bio years ago on my hexagonal Twitter fucking profile picture.
Shovelware like I've never seen before.
Oh, can we just launch all the grifters into space? Because it's like, you know, technology empowering humanity. Like, how many fucking... is it?
Sorry,
what?
The problem is...
8,000 weeks?
I don't know.
You have 8,000 weeks to live. I think it's about
Please
that.
don't say that. Fuck.
But it gets
hell.
worse.
Oh,
It gets worse because, you know,
that can't be right.
maybe this is different for other people,
That
but
can't be right. Is that in like 40 years?
I don't feel like I really existed until I was like 18 and I started to become a person. And, you know, I escaped from society in a way. You could say I'm a bit of a weird delusional
Yeah, it's
person.
not 8,000 weeks, 'cause that's 153 years.
Oh, maybe 6,000 weeks. Something anyway.
Yeah.
But, you know, I basically, I don't give a shit about any of the time that I experienced before the age of like 16. I mean, sure, it was pivotal and did make me who I am and all that
Oh,
shit.
that was good as shit.
But, you know,
That was the fucking Adventure Quest and Dragon Fable days. That shit owned.
see, for me, it was like, yeah, I was just playing Total War games, but like now I'm trying to like manifest a better future, and like that's my purpose in life. And it's like, so I actually find like, oh fuck, I finally exist for a reason.
It's very self-aggrandizing compared to playing Adventure Quest and Dragon Fable. Like,
I mean, no, but back then, I look back in those days fondly, but now it's like, okay, we have this amount of time that we live, and
I think
my brain is going to be soup for this amount of time. So we'll remove when I'm a soup brain when I'm older, and then we'll remove whenever I, you know, need my fucking arse wiped. And then, you know, it's like we have this small bit of like 30 or 40 years when we're like an adult in working age and, you know, all of that shit. So for me, the idea that this, you know, golden time, this important time is something that you've got to use drafting pleasantries in an intra-company email. Like, you know what I mean?
I could sort of agree, but I think I'm going to say that's a very, as someone who's spent a lot of time reading about Buddhism, I think there's a couple of lessons might need to be learned there about stepping outside of one's own boundary of time in the great cycle of death and rebirth. To maybe, there's a little bit aggrandizing, a little bit.
Oh no, I like the Buddha.
A little bit throwing yourself into a weird storm of sorts that way.
It's weird.
Weird. It's kind of. It's hard to exactly put words without thinking about it for a while.
Things are different for different people. At least I know that I get bored extremely quickly unless I am like, I have to be doing something that's engaging and building something, or I'm just bored. That's just, I don't know, whatever wiring is. So, but then the problem is within that, there's loads of tasks that are a part of that aren't fun. Because, like, you know, everybody thinks about, oh, let's build the ultimate Notion setup. Let's use Todoist and blah, 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 blah.
Says
you know,
like
yeah, I know, says me, exactly.
Fucking hell.
But the thing that I have realized in the last, like, 2 months, and this really is, like, the 2-month epiphany that's, I think, going to help change a lot of things. No, the best way to be productive is to have fun. And what you need to do is an 80-20 analysis of not parts of one's professional life that are productive for the end result. You got to do the 80-20 analysis of what's actually fun. And then you need to work out all the shit that's not fun. How can that be destroyed? And for me, the idea that like I have been able to radically make emails a smaller part of my existence because I've just let the fucking happy talkie machine do it for me, and I can just be like Kevin from The Office whenever I'm like, okay, this is from me to them, these are the 3 topics I want to cover, and then because I know what I want, I skim read the things like, yep, that's fine, boom, sent, done. And maybe I'll have a little disclaimer in my thing that's like, all these emails are written by AI, whatever. Like that like slays the boredom and it lets me focus in on the fun. And I mean, a really good example of this was working on content. Last night I had so many fucking chores to do. I was able to AI assist my way through a whole bunch of those chores. And then when it came to writing the video and the raid stuff, I just thought about Alt-Shift-X. And I was like, hang on a second. How can I like walk people through these little story elements in the script in a way that they will find to be like, you know, really satisfying? And then whenever it came to editing that video, I was like, oh man, this whole thing of having to, you know, make an edit point, ripple, delete, blah, 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 blah. This is procedural. This can be automated. So then I headed over to AE Scripts. I got a silence removal tool and set up how to cut an entire piece of A-roll in one button. So what would usually be a really boring 30 to 40 to 50 minutes was done in, I would say, 30 seconds then requiring a very small amount of cleanup, because there needs to be the human element. And the reason why we cut the drudgery out is so that you can best apply the human element where it actually counts. And I guess that's the stuff that I've been like trying to realize. It's like there's so many aspects of what we do that aren't fun. It's like, here's a really good example. I remember having like a Henry Hoover. I guess, warning, there's like I recognize that this is like a bit of a privileged thing because like those Dyson stick boys are quite expensive. They can be bought secondhand, and the cheaper models by Shark are also really, really good. So it is more accessible. But this is like a really good example. I friggin' hate hoovering because you've got to have the cable. The cable goes from the thing into the thing, and then you've got the things here, and even the bit, when you put it away, and maybe it's one of those ones where they press the button, it auto retracts the cable, and it doesn't fully go in, and then you've got to fucking jostle it, and it's like all that little bit of friction. Whereas with the fucking Dyson stick thing, it's like, and the way, there's those things that are just oddly satisfying. You're like, the dirt's being deleted. This is cool. And even for partners company, they got one of those Dyson stick things, and the guy who was like getting it, he was like, I really don't think this is a good use of our money. And then they came into work the next day, and he had fully cleaned the entire place. Turner's like, this was completely worth it. I just cleaned the whole fucking office, and it was really fun. So that's where I'm beginning to like evolve my understanding of technology, as it can be used not to, basically the opposite of the crypto bros. The crypto bros are doing what they're doing because they only live to make money.
They're trying to replace the creative element with AI generation because that's the hard part and the value part.
Yeah.
They're trying to generate the most important element of value through generation, and that's where it's becoming a problem because people are like, well, that's soulless. And you're like, well, what is soul? The AI can generate a soul because it's just real life bits put together. It can necromancy a bunch of bits of soul from across everything together into one big look. And that's the idea of them trying to replace that, where it's obviously the correct way is it is a tool, use the tool to make the actual human experience better as a whole through enabling creativity as opposed to replacing it.
Yeah.
And that's where there'd be some argument where, because the example used of the calculator earlier is interesting because if you always use a calculator, you never end up understanding the basic mathematics. That's the argument. So if you
lose it.
So
if you don't use it, you lose it.
Use it or lose it, as Jocko's been tweeting recently. I guess that's because he's getting a bit older and going, well, need to stay physically fit. And that's the idea of it's that thing of being careful what you replace.
Yeah.
Because you take your example of email writing to the logical extreme, and obviously it's a logical extreme, it's nonsense. And then you forget how to write because you've outsourced all of your messages to an AI and all of your phrasing. And then you no longer think in terms of the correct language. You think in bullet points. And that completely removes your ability to think in that way. And that's where I think it comes to like the important core skills of like drawing and stuff. Replacing that with AI is interesting as a problem you could ultimately have.
Yeah,
it could be construed as, oh, you're removing the boring bits, but it's also, I find that obviously the thing I always say is like beauty, or God, if you're that way inclined, is found in the detail, and that's found in flow, that's found in every second of a thing, where the alternative to you going, well, what if I remove all of this stuff that I find boring? The alternative to that is to pay complete attention to what's boring, and then you'll find it's not boring after all because there is beauty in the minutiae.
So
one argument against that.
I would say that that's true, but I think you can philosophy. It's a two-sided philosophical discussion.
Yes.
And that means you can philosophy anything into anywhere.
Yes,
exactly. And that is why philosophers haven't worked it out yet. I guess what I would say there is, for me, it's about fatigue. I only have so much energy that I can apply to creative work. Yeah. So if I'm going to spend time writing, I want that to be writing where I am doing everything that you are saying, paying attention to the details, and really intentionally trying to better the craft.
Yeah.
Whenever it comes to a communication, I do take the view that telepathy is ideal because that is a high bit rate, instantaneous form of communication. Unfortunately, telepathy between people is obviously not a thing that we have. Therefore, we have to communicate things via voice. Now, voice, what's the kind of effective bit rate that you're speaking at in terms of me getting ideas into your brain?
Extremely high compared to text, I guess.
Yeah. So then if I'm sitting there typing, I'm fatiguing my wrists, I'm fatiguing my fingers, using a low bit rate form of communication.
Just get fucking strong, like.
Whereas
fatigue, what's that?
My fingers are typing at the same effective bit rate, ish, in a way that is not correlated to the informational importance of the data being input by the fingers.
Yeah.
Because, I hope this email finds you well. I mean, who says that and's like, oh, could you look at that? Felicia hopes this email will find me well. God bless her. No one thinks that.
Well, this is where there is value in that because it is a ritual. There's value in rituals and niceties, even though everyone knows it's kind of pointless. Because you can this is kind of pointless into never speaking to anyone and going just nodding at each other and assuming that does most of the work. And that's where there's a lot of human culture.
The knowing nod's pretty big in movies. Like
there's a lot of what I would say is logical understanding that is incomplete because we only have the one view of it. In the same sense, people start talking about interdimensional things and other dimensions layered over because we have limited vision and limited sight. We can only see certain colors and certain wavelengths of light, and we can only hear certain things. So it's the equivalent of how many dog whistles are going off in all their dimensions.
I love this, Sebastian. Yeah. I hope this email finds you miserable twat.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. I am very concerned with haste having a lot of babies fired out with the bathwater in a number of ways. That's where ultimately my concern is for this because we end up making very big torment nexuses.
I think that you can be conservative, low intellect, slow, avoid problems. I think you can be rapid, high intellect, fast but not breakneck. And I think the problem that we've had is that venture capital backed capitalism has not been fast intellect, good progression. Instead, it has been breakneck, as fast as is fucking possible. Gas, 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 gas. The only KPI we care about is fucking money. You need to hyper optimize this to be absolute crack and destroy people's brains. And I guess that's where, the babies and the bathwater, all those terrible things have happened. I feel that if we just have more data ethicists and people are actually actively thinking about these things, then we can, and maybe this is the right way to put it. I think that rather than increase our speed of innovation in an absolute sense, we should instead increase our speed of ethical innovation and perhaps maybe having the thinking framework of what ethical innovation could be and optimizing not for innovation at all costs, but for ethical innovation. I think then that optimizes for a better future in a way that the torment nexus doesn't, in the way that Mark Zuckerberg being like, Ready Player One, that's pretty cool, I'll build that. Yeah. Everyone looks at Ready Player One, it's like, no, we do not want this.
You missed the point.
The torment nexus.
You missed the point. Yeah.
I mean, Caligula, if we fell on our ass with what the internet was going to do to us, we need to not make the same mistake again.
Yeah, that's the thing. Every new frontier is a place to make mistakes and lose things permanently along the way. It's how many frontiers do we find when there's nothing left of us at the end? Do we have the capacity to make the steps carefully enough to not fucking fall into the ice?
I mean, you don't want a situation where we are all the cognitive equivalents of the humans in WALL-E.
That's exactly my profound fear.
We almost then turn into what you could perhaps call techno-intellectual feudalism.
Yeah.
God, I'm just fucking coining random bullshit. What I mean when I say techno-intellectual feudalism is the idea that the masses are turned into smoothie brain jelly, which of course the movie WALL-E is doing in a very physical sense, the people's physical needs being replaced by floating around in a pod. But what if that happens to people mentally? And then the people who are able to be, when I say the intellectual tech feudal lords. It's the idea that then, just people will be kind of smoosh brain, and there will be a smaller number of people that are controlling the smoosh brains.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, what if it's happening with TikTok right now?
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, I fucking love science fiction novels. The sci-fi novels that are full on, like, this is,
What was your one? The Dark Forest, the Black Forest?
Oh, the three body problem.
Yeah.
That's great. The the one about the potential futures. It was the creepiest. There's a great Alt-Shift-X video. Tomorrow something. Help me out, guys. It's the one with all of the really creepy human art. Like if humans turned into like grazing sort of animals and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like these aliens are just like, you know what? We are going to turn all tomorrows. Yeah. All tomorrows where like one of the, it's just really brilliant in horror. The idea of like, so imagine, Matt, if you wake up in the body.
No, not no.
Imagine if you wake up. Imagine if you woke up in the form of, imagine if a human was turned into a cow and you literally did not have the ability to vocalize in the way that a human did.
Oh, you talked about this the other day, yeah.
Yeah, you were not able to vocalize in the way that a human would. You didn't have hands with opposable thumbs anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have hooves. A bit of an improvement. But,
not blue skin though.
Overall, a pretty bad. Just all tomorrows is like so like
Yeah.
But the thing that happens to that like group of humans that are basically turned into these like fucking herding, or graze animals, is that over time, that they suffer because they have a full human experience stuck in a vessel
that's incapable,
and then evolution breeds them stupid. Because all of these things that they have are completely maladaptive for their form.
Because all of the humans currently having a human experience inside a cow's brain, they're likely to walk off the nearest fucking cliff.
Yeah, and then what if we do a big fuckty-wuckty with technology, which then is the thought.
Yeah, that's why I am...
Cognitive Wally humans.
Yeah, that's why I'm like full, I guess... maybe it's like, I'm assuming it's because I trust my gut quite a lot. I trust my gut instinct. I trust whatever my subconscious decides to tell me because it's a lot smarter than I fucking am. And I'm assuming it hits me consistently with that whenever I feel a real dread fear when it comes to tech, I assume it's for a good reason. Obviously, there could be like there could be egotistical reasons about like not wanting being replaced and like, I guess, how do I put it? Economic concerns about that, and et cetera, all that.
At one point I said to
running
you,
in the background.
My word was, being replaced has never felt so good. But the way that you talk about economic concerns, again, it's a great example of like, people think about Star Trek as the end point where like there's,
It's utopian, or like...
It's utopian. Like in Star Trek.
That is not what's going to happen in any universe.
Star Trek is genuinely utopian. Now, there are lots of sci-fi universes that actually do grapple with the issues that a utopian society would face. Final Fantasy 14 and Walker also does this.
Yeah.
Very effectively.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, I just cannot help but think of the Dragonflight marketing.
Was it up there? Yeah. No, as well as now this is going to be a bit weird, but ID2K and Caligula, who are largely in the same we have like a habit all evening, both brought up the Unabomber. Ted Kaczynski had this whole thing, technology bad. Obviously, committed horrible crimes. But the manifesto was, there's a little bit of a reasonability to it. So I trust my gut instinct, and my gut is, this shit's probably going to go wrong, be careful. But a lot of that is also like trying to logically math that out is because of, as a human, what am I evolutionarily more likely to be happy with and enjoy as an overall series? And that's likely to be outside with other people who are, mostly or largely like me and eat loads of food and run around and fight animals and stuff. That's probably what my human body is a little bit more happy to sort of nudge me towards.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit more of, maybe we should probably try to keep that until we can solve the evolutionary problem of how do we change ourselves to be better for a future, because I feel like if we push tech way faster than we can have biological evolution happen, then we're going to have all of the problems that we currently have, but substantially worse, where we will just be at the core of, because we obviously don't understand the entirety of the subconscious and the brain and whatever the soul is. There's a part of that will probably be really, really, really fucking unhappy with whatever we do that's evolving way past us there. So it'll be way happier to just be like, can I just sit in the field and eat some berries? Like, with like my wife and 12 children, can I just do that? That seems a bit better overall, I think, in terms of like from the evolutionary perspective.
It's weird. I mean, you think of, like, I think it's Çatalhöyük. It's like one of the earliest human sort of settlements. Like, I'm talking like 9,000 years ago, like insane, you think about how, like, Homo sapien, we've been around for like 300,000 years, obviously commingling with a few other species of similar evolutionary cousins. And, they find Neanderthals who have cared for wounded members of their tribe in a way that the fucking Spartans wouldn't have. As an example. And I suppose just to what you're saying there about, the return to monkey, I would, I suppose I'm not going back far enough, am I? But
return to fish.
So return to fish. The way it's like we exist. It's the sort of thing. It's like the word sonder and what that means, and you sort of take sonder a little bit forward, and then it's like you could almost realize, whoa, what if me and Matt Lagan, the like tiny little fucking atom at the very core, is actually the same thing, but we're just in a bit of a different brain in a different situation and different, genes and different stuff, and that makes us different because, we would think, well, what the fuck is consciousness? Then you think like way back.
Off the rails.
Huh?
This went off the rails.
It really is going off the rails. And I think it's like that thing of like, going to Sonder, but then a few levels deeper than Sonder. I think that's, when people start talking about like, oh, God's inside you, or, the shared consciousness or whatever.
Yep.
I don't think those, I think that it is an emergent property of, our brain. But
what if we're all antenna for greater consciousness?
Oh, cosmic death fungus.
Yeah.
But, you then think like, I think that's a very humbling thing.
Yeah.
The idea of me, the self, I'm a consciousness, and I am a consciousness that thinks what it thinks, does what it does, knows what it knows, because of, not to be overly deterministic, but like all this shit around us, including your own brain and your own fucking, evolution and your childhood and your culture that you brought up in and all this shit. And it's like, you take that exact same thing. It was the exact same thing for someone 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago, in these times where, we just wouldn't really know what was going on because it wouldn't be preserved in the record. And you kind of wonder, well, like, we're deifying return to monkey, but what did they think? Because maybe, they were just like us, exactly like us. They just maybe didn't have as effective language or, whatever. That makes me interested. This has definitely gone off the rails.
It has gone off the rails, but I think
whatever goes off the rails, I think people maybe learn a bit more of who we are.
Yeah.
Be that for good or ill.
Yeah, it's I guess it's some version, some correlation between age and also being in the minds of YouTube. You do get pretty existential.
Yeah.
About a lot of things, especially I think
it does always go off the rails by the end, yeah.
Creeping Death says, isn't there something that we are all the same person experiencing life in different ways / views to be a cosmic being with vast knowledge? I remember there being a very old post circulating about it was a fictional story, but I've seen lots in the same direction of, I mean, isn't that like fundamentally what like the cycle of death and rebirth is? The idea of we're all just God, or some God of some form, not necessarily like not necessarily Yahweh or whatever else. We're all just living out every possible existence. And then at the end, we will be everything at all once. We will be omnipotent and we will be everything that everything was. Which is a bit fucking trippy and probably not really relevant to most experiences unless you're on a lot of DMT all the time. But yeah, which you probably shouldn't do.
Well, there's the sort of inside out extrapolation of things.
Yeah.
which again, sometimes there's a very abstract idea, but then you can talk about maybe a piece of media that's explored that idea in a good way. People think about quantum suicide.
Yeah.
And it's like, we could talk about a double slit experiment, or you could watch the movie The Prestige. And that would be a pretty cool way for you to learn that in a way that's also told through a human emotional story. I guess for some of this, maybe the TV show Devs would be good, only because Devs is, it's grappling with, obviously things in this sort of quantum computing sort of thing, but it's more about an ancestor simulation. But you could even go past that to be like, well, who cares what fucking hardware reality's running on? The idea of, the big God, as you were talking about it there, you could see how that could exist in something like with Devs. The idea of like, you take who you are, can you extrapolate other things from that? In the same way in Devs, it's like, hang on, if this shit's deterministic, if I have a pen that rolls from here to here, and we can, through quantum computer,
what made that
perfectly calculate what made that pen roll, and then we could work out what made that pen, what made the thing that made the pen roll, and then you could basically, suddenly when, Devs is such a good show.
Devs good.
It's better than Men.
Yeah, better than Men's a television show.
I really want to get responsibly in an interesting frame of mind. And watch a bunch of men giving birth to other men and the utter fucking insanity of Devs.
Yeah, it's a good movie. Good.
Oh yeah, The Matrix is awesome.
Yeah.
Just to say also, The Matrix is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
I love shit like that.
Yeah, I think there's a certain subset of people, including me, who watch The Matrix at, let's be frank, far too young an age. But we're reasonably clued into the more sci-fi elements of it and the more philosophical elements of it.
Is that because of anime?
Probably, without really realizing it at the time, and them just being stuck in your head. Basically, the growing up and watching The Matrix and playing Metal Gear Solid 2 around the same time really fucks you up in a perfect way.
If I played Metal Gear Solid 2 when I was a kid, I'd have been dangerous.
Yeah, that's like...
Didn't though?
It's fun how I played Metal Gear Solid 2 and then became a victim of the internet. You're like, fucking hell, I should have been protected against this. Well. That's what it is.
You're like the player character in World of Warcraft, pulling a Warlords of Draenor.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh god. Oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
Who knows?
We didn't really have any conclusion, but that's the fun part of this. You can't have a conclusion because no one has a goddamn clue, and everyone's just like, "What if God's an egg or whatever?"
Well, do you remember the thing that I talked to you about a few days ago as to maybe something that me and you could do in the future?
Yeah.
I think some sort of content that is in and around what we're talking about now could, be a natural offshoot of that.
I gotta be the
2, 3, 4, 5 years. Don't worry about it.
I'll be the modern day Alan Watts. Oh dear. Yo, that conversation was well ahead of its time. The one at the end of MGS2.
Big.
So the fun thing is, I believe most of that was Kojima riffing on a bunch of sci-fi novels that he'd read, but fundamentally, yeah, he clearly understood them. That's why I'm interested in playing Death Stranding, because I never played it, and then I saw Death Stranding 2's announcement, and I went,
oh my God, I'm so in.
That shit looks Turbo Kino. I didn't know Death Stranding was like, oh, what the fuck, give me that.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
To I guess finalize things, just because you brought up that Kojima was inspired by a lot of sci-fi.
Yeah.
Sometimes, what can be nice is when YouTube can make things be accessible to people in a way that they previously weren't.
YouTube is, I think, one of the prime examples. I think I've talked about this before in terms of controlling your reality through what you engage with. Mm-hmm. And YouTube is the perfect example of there's so much content that you end up having these like really life-enriching experiences possible through super rapid education.
There are so many monkeys with typewriters making things on YouTube that YouTube almost acts like the AI, where you can type in what you want. You want to learn about the iPad? Go to Christopher Lawley. He'll teach you about things in the iPad. Hopefully GPT won't replace him one day. So I would recommend Alt-Shift-X. There's All Tomorrows. I think you'd really enjoy that video. I would also recommend the YouTube channel Quinn's Ideas for a lot of sci-fi books that are like big within the sci-fi community, but maybe don't go absolutely humongous you know, in like the mass market. So I mean, currently I've got the whole of the 3-Body Problem trilogy as one of my Christmas things to do. Yeah. Oh, also yes, TZ saying to you, have you ever played Androl? It sounds like something you enjoy.
I have not.
That is Androl the Oblivion one?
The total conversion mod for Oblivion.
I think it's in German. It is very good, and I think the thing they've done for Skyrim is also very, very good. Those are, if you were to do a top 20 list of the best mods that our civilization has created to a game in all time, I think Androl would certainly be in there.
Nice. Very nice.
Okay, Androl is Skyrim.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go. All right.
Awesome.